Hello friends, I happen to have a video about Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly, and for a small fee, you too can watch it. What do you say? Excellent, without further ado, enjoy. Spyro started life promisingly enough, with 3 great games that all improved on the last. Insomniac decided, however, that this was the end and they had done everything they had wanted to do with Spyro and were ready to move on to the next idea. If this was the end, however, we wouldn't be making this video. And Universal Studios decided that this most certainly wasn't the end, as they could still see potential in Spyro, the potential to make more money. So they gave the reins off to new studios with no prior experience and no games developed, and gave them a deadline ready for the holiday season. With this recipe for success, they managed to push out Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly.
The game starts out with Spyro and the gang, minus like half of them, where's Allura this time, are holding a party to celebrate the coming of age of young dragons when they get their Dragonfly guardians. This is when Ripto shows up and attempts to steal all of the dragonflies, only for his wand to fail and the dragonflies to scatter across the realms. As always, Spyro must leap into action to fix this and stop Ripto once again. That's the story, but what about the world? Well, the game features a single hub world, which is a bit of a step down from previous titles if you ask me, and 8 stages. These stages being the Dragon Realms. This is the open hub world, though it does tend to feel a bit small and barren. You then have the Dragonfly Dojo, a martial arts dojo in which the dragonflies are raised before being paired with their dragons. You've got Crop Circle Country, a series of farms being invaded by aliens. Luau Island, this is what I imagine Hawaii is like. Cloud 9, a kingdom in the clouds populated by perpetually tired bears. Monkey Monastery, the Ice World, home of yetis and monk-style monkeys. Honey Marsh, one I found to be rather interesting concept but possibly lacking in actual filler. This is a bee farm, a giant bee farm essentially, in which they harvest the honey. You've got the Thieves' Den, a series of bejeweled caves full of crystals. And then finally Jurassic Jungle, some sort of jungle setting full of dinosaurs, as it does what it says on the tin basically. What's a collectathon without many things to collect? And Enter the Dragonfly certainly has things to collect. The main collectible are the dragonflies we mentioned. There are 10 of these per world, which includes the hub world, and they're used to unlock the various stages as you progress through the game. From the previous Spyro games, the gems make a return. Each stage has a set number of gems, dependent on the stage, and however, unlike the previous games, there's seemingly no point to collecting them. In the past there was a character called Moneybags who would provide some means of progression in exchange for a small donation of gems. This time round, however, Moneybags only makes a single appearance, in the first stage at that, giving this expectation that he'll come back or there'll be some need for gems. However, the only real purpose for them seems to be completion's sake, getting 100% completion within the game. New to Enter the Dragonfly, however, there are runes, and while I'm not necessarily sure if these would be classed as collectibles, there are a few of them strewn about the game, and while they're usually in plain sight, you do need to make sure you pick them up. So how does Spyro handle to collect all of these collectibles? Well, he keeps the same base moveset from the previous games, meaning he can jump, glide, charge, breathe, fire, as well as some of the stuff you learnt in later games like ground pound and climbing ladders. On top of that though, this is the one thing Enter the Dragonfly really does new, and that's adding a whole bunch of extra moves. So, I mentioned runes earlier, this is where these come in. Find a rune, take it back to a dragon statue in the hub world, get a new move. Most of these moves though aren't really particularly inspired, they're just additional breath attacks. You get bubble breath, lightning breath, that kind of thing. And they all affect enemies, well they affect the surroundings differently anyway. So first one you get is bubble breath. Only reason to use this is to capture dragonflies. You'll find loose dragonflies, capture it in a bubble. Why they wouldn't want to hang out with Spyro, I don't know. Next you get the lightning breath. Use this to fry enemies and activate machinery, the odd piece of machinery needed in the stages to collect additional dragonflies. Then after that there's the ice breath. This doesn't kill enemies, but it does freeze them in place, so they're easier to kill, or you can use them as a platform to reach higher places. This also includes little NPCs, the Madman. And then the final move, and this is the most different, would be the wing shield. Spyro can block incoming projectiles with his wings, in some cases reflecting them back. Only really found one required use for this, and spent most of the game just dodging instead. I mean, when you use them, Spyro can't run about, he's stuck in place and can only tilt side to side, so there's very little point, in my opinion. Never mind the rest of it though, arguably the most important part of a game is the gameplay. And what do you get in Spyro? Well, most of it is just collecting dragonflies. But what do you need to do to get the dragonflies? Well, there are 4 different methods. The first is platforming. This will see Spyro exploring a level to find dragonflies just hanging around. Usual stuff, jump on a platform, glide across, avoid an obstacle, that kind of thing. Next, there are the flying stages from previous games. Spyro gets free reign to just fly about the skies and either race against a series of enemies or compete in a timed obstacle course that sees you destroy a number of objects within the time provided. Then there are the gates. Once you go through a gate, you'll need to complete a timed objective which consists of Spyro using a specific breath attack on a number of targets that are spawned within the area. And then finally, there are mini-games strewn about the various levels, which include tasks from playing Simon, driving vehicles, or going down slides. This is the part we've all been waiting for. Spyro Enter the Dragonfly is known for being a buggy mess. This was the first time, as mentioned earlier, Spyro was created by a new studio and rushed out, leaving it riddled with problems. While playing, it was hard not to notice these bugs. For example, to name a few, the music will stop for a short while in the middle of stages, Spyro will get stuck on objects while trying to talk to NPCs, and then there's the ability to phase through objects, which lets you just skip through most of the game, moving straight on to the final boss without even playing it. And speaking of bosses, there's only one in the entire game, the final Ripto fight. It has 1 phase if you didn't collect everything and 3 if you did, though it's probably not worth getting everything to fight the final boss in my opinion. Despite being shown in the few cutscenes there are in the game, and even having dialogue, Ripto's minions, Gulp and Crush, don't make appearances as bosses, and neither do any other Riptocs. One of my favourite things, however, to come from this whole buggy mess is the character models. Not only do they not look good outside of cutscenes, but the lip syncing is horrendous. In cutscenes, they're all over the place, and outside of cutscenes in general gameplay, they're just looped, so they don't match with dialogue at all, and it is something to see. I've been describing Spyro Enter the Dragonfly through my experience in it as a good game done poorly. It's the same basic thing as the 3 games that came before, but rushed out badly. If it had more time and better people working on it, it really could have been a great Spyro 4.